Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave, and today it is Premier League prediction time. I want you to get your predictions in down below from 20th to 1st in the Premier League. Who'll make the Champions League? Who'll get relegated? We're going to answer all of those questions in this video. Stay tuned, it's going to be an absolute banger. Let's get this party started. So starting in 20th, look away, Leicester City fans, as I predict the Foxes will finish bottom of the Premier League. That's for a number of reasons. The first being that they're going to get the record points deduction from breaching FFP. Could be even up to 15 points. On top of that, Leicester City lost Enzo Maresca to Chelsea over the summer. Attacking with a free hit in Keenan Dewsbury Hall, they played some really good football. Unfortunately though, Maresca's gone, Keenan Dewsbury Hall's gone as well to Chelsea, and he was directly involved in 26 goals from midfield last season in the Championship, more than any other player playing that position. He's not been replaced, and Steve Cooper comes into a team that looks in disarray. He said that they're not ready going into the season to actually play Premier League football. I think it's going to be a long campaign for Leicester, and that's unfortunately why we've got them bottom of the Premier League. A lack of Premier League quality, poor signings, but also an appointment that doesn't really fit the system and shape of what they were playing last season. On to 19th, we've got Southampton in 19th. I like what Russell Martin's been doing. I like the projects at Southampton right now. They seem to be signing the right players that can help them compete at a decent level. I think the only concern for the Southampton squad is it might not be quite Premier League quality. Their recruitment has been very good. You're looking at the likes of Sugawara, been brought in from the Eredivisie. He's a fullback that has stats similar to Trent Alexander-Arnold. You've got the likes of Flynn Downs, signed by West Ham, for me, one of the best defensive midfielders in the Championship last season. Ben Bertrand Diaz joins, of course, from Villarreal, and he's a signing that could potentially score goals at Premier League level, although we've not quite seen him be as prolific as he was in the Championship. That all being said, I don't think Southampton have enough. I like what Russell Martin has done tactically, especially at the back end of last season, adapting his shape to basically playing a 5 at the back in possession, but a 4-3-3 with the ball. He's a tactical innovator and a manager that I think is going to go really far. Although the main problem for Southampton is going to be goals, going to be keeping clean sheets, and it's going to be player quality in the Premier League. The style that Southampton played last season was similar to how Burnley played in the Championship. Company adapted too late for Burnley last season, and I might see the same thing happen for Southampton here, that they want to play football out from the back, but the Premier League, the player quality goes up, the time on the ball goes up, and there's a lot of differences. But I do think Southampton are building a squad that will be good in the Championship next season. So you're thinking Premier League relegated this season in 19th, and then promoted straight after if they can keep Russell Martin. Right, on to 18th, and it is Ipswich Town. Kieran McKenna's Ipswich Town are a brilliant footballing side. They press in a 4-2-3-1, squeezing the opponents high up the pitch before transitioning to a 3-2-5 with the left-back Leif Davis moving into the attacking line, Wes Burn holding one touchline, Amari Hutchinson playing inside with Connor Chaplin behind the number 9. The football is really good. It's pragmatic at times. Ipswich play out from the back, draw you in, and then they'll look to hit target men out wide. Usually number 9 will move into the left channel, and their right winger Wes Burn is a great option. The only issue I think for Ipswich, similar to Southampton, is I don't think they've got enough Premier League quality, but they've signed really well for the Championship or for the future of the football club. You're looking at Jacob Greaves from Hull City, is a brilliant signing, a young centre-back with a really bright future ahead. On top of that, Amari Hutchinson joined from Chelsea, one of the biggest live wires in the Championship last season, such an exciting player. If Ipswich are to stay up, I think it's going to be down to their players really stepping up to this level, being able to deal with the consequences of Premier League football, and having the likes of Amari Hutchinson and Leif Davis really opening up that left-hand side. I do think versus Russell Martin and maybe Steve Cooper, Kieran McKenna can design these good tactical plans. We saw that, of course, for Manchester United against PSG. He was part of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's coaching staff that came up with those ideas. So I think if there's any club out of the promoted side that will stay up, it will be Ipswich Town. On top of that, at the time of recording, they've not signed Sammy Smodics yet, who played attacking midfield for Blackburn Rovers last season in the Championship and scored 27 goals. The shape and system that Kieran McKenna has built at Ipswich Putting someone like that into that system could really see Ipswich score goals at Premier League level. Smodic could either play as the number 9 or as the number 10 and have a bit of a, interchange with Connor Chaplin in that area. But if they buy him, I do think Ipswich Town will actually stay up. So it's all on that single transfer. Ipswich are going to be a joy to watch in the Premier League, and I can't wait for you guys to see them. Tactically great with one of the best young managers on the planet in Kieran McKenna. On to 17th position, and we're going with Nottingham Forest, just staying up, but they're going to be in a relegation battle. In terms of Nottingham Forest, in terms of their signings, Milinkovic from Fiorentina is an absolute coup. For me, a defender that could be playing for a top 6 team in the Premier League. His partnership with Morello will be a big part of why they stay up. Morello was fantastic in the Premier League last season, arguably one of the best young centre-backs in the competition. But Nottingham Forest are very passive under Nuno Espirito Santo. They rank bottom of the Premier League for PPDA. Again, a metric we used previously that judges how a team presses. In terms of why they'll stay up, I think it's going to be built on those 2 centre-backs, but also the attacking side of their game. Morgan Gibbs-White is a top-quality footballer that's improving year on year in terms of goals and assists, and Anthony Elanga has been really freed in Nottingham, a player that's got a good relationship with Chris Wood, and I think that outlet will keep them in the Premier League. One of the big problems for Forest last season was their goalkeepers. They conceded an extra 18 goals based on post-shot expected goals models versus what they were supposed to save. They did sign massive goalkeeper Carlos Miguel from Corinthians over the summer, but I think it's going to be a bit too far to ask him to step up for Forest. On to 16th, and it's a team that went under the radar last season for being quite rubbish, and that was Brentford. Of course, Ivan Toney was missing for half the season, but I feel like Brentford have not got enough, and they've not done enough in the transfer market to stay in the Premier League. On top of that, Igor Thiago, who they signed to kind of replace Toney, is out with a knee injury until the new year. The big concern with Toney is if he doesn't get his move before the end of this transfer window. Of course, we're recording this video before the window closes, so make sure you know that before you get into the comments below and get a bit angry about certain players like Victor Osimhen joining Chelsea or whatever. But Toney at the moment is still at Brentford. As much as I feel he's a professional player and will step up, the back end of last season he was quite poor. Is he the type of player that might sack it off second half of the season if he signed a pre-contract agreement in January? I don't know. They're my big concerns with Brentford. They've not been into the market enough. They've not improved their squad enough. And I do think there's a big problem on the horizon for Thomas Frank. And if we go back and analyse last season, Brentford finished 16th. But the stats with Toney and without Toney were exactly the same. They averaged a point a game without Toney and 1.05 points per game with him. The big thing with Brentford is they've been massively overperforming since coming to the Premier League. In the first 2 seasons they were in the league, they had the lowest average wage spend. This season, they're 18th in the Premier League. Thomas Frank has performed miracles with Brentford in the Premier League, but I think this season might be too far if they don't spend their cash. On to 15th position and a team that will flirt with relegation all season, Wolverhampton Wanderers. They finished the season in terrible form with 1 win in the last 10 Premier League games. On top of that, they've lost 2 of arguably their best players. Max Kilman joining West Ham United and Pedro Neto. Yes, I understand he's injured quite a lot of the time, but he joined Chelsea and he's a player that when he's fit, Wolves seem to attack a lot better. At the start of the season, he was flying on the left wing and had more assists than any other player in the league after the first 2 months of the season. He's going to be a massive miss, and so is Kilman. Defensively is the big concern with Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've not replaced the centre-half. And if you look at the centre-backs that Wolves have got available to them for this season, is it going to be another year of Craig Dawson carrying this Wolves defence? But I do think Wolves are going to struggle this season, and I could see Gary O'Neill being the first manager to be sacked in the Premier League. Get into the comments below and let me know which manager you think will be sacked first in the Premier League this season. On to 14th position, we're going to go with Fulham. Fulham have made some really good acquisitions in an attacking sense. Emile Smith-Rowe will be freed under Marco Silva to play number 10, to drift around and expect him to score goals. My big concern with Fulham, though, is not only their centre-backs being a little bit dodgy at times, but losing João Paulinho. In the 2 seasons that Paulinho played for Fulham in the Premier League, he made over 190 tackles plus interceptions in each of his seasons. That is ridiculous in terms of numbers. And I think the big concern there is if you actually go back to Marco Silva's time at Everton, he also lost a ball-winning defensive midfielder and went from 8th to actually getting sacked whilst Everton were in 18th position when Idrissa Gana Gueye joined PSG and Everton didn't replace his ball-winning. Sasa Lucic is the defensive midfielder that will step in to replace Paulinho, but he doesn't have the same ability, tenacity in the tackle, but overall engine to get up and down the pitch as we've seen in the Premier League. That could leave Fulham really vulnerable for the transition, but also when teams are building out from the back. Paulinho is an absolute expert in those situations, and he's going to be missed, and that is why we've got Fulham in 14th place. On to 13th spot, and we're going to go with Everton, once again hampered by a potential points deduction. Last season in the Premier League, Everton in fact would have finished 12th if they hadn't been deducted all those points. On top of that, Everton defensively were outstanding. Only Arsenal kept more clean sheets than Sean Dyche's Toffees. On top of that, only Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool conceded more goals. It was definitely a defensive solidity first approach from Dyche, but they also attack with swagger in certain games. They've added to that with Ndiaye joining from Marseille and of course Lundstram from the Bundesliga. They've added other players as well, with Big Tim joining in central midfield for Aston Villa, and of course Jake O'Brien joining from Lyon. Everton are slowly developing themselves into a pretty decent mid-table football team, and I think if they don't have points deductions, we'd see even more improvement. But for those reasons, we're going to bang Everton 13th in the Premier League and maybe go on a good cup run. On to 12th, and we're going to go with Bournemouth. Bournemouth were brilliant to watch last season. They combined pressing football with direct play in the final third, but they had a number 9 last season that was on fire. Solanke scored 19 goals in the Premier League, which is the most any player has ever managed for Bournemouth in a single Premier League season. He's joined Tottenham Hotspur, which again I think is a really good move for both clubs. Bournemouth get the cash. Tottenham get a guaranteed 20 goals in the Premier League. In terms of replacements, Semenyo could step up. He was directly involved in 10 goals in the league last season, playing from the left, the right, from number 10, or even as a striker. I think he's got the perfect profile for Iraola. The one concern I do have with Bournemouth is teams working them out how they play. Bournemouth were a team that were basically a gegenpressing side. They averaged 44% possession last season in the league. If teams adapt to that and give Bournemouth the football and allow Bournemouth to try and break them down before counter-attacking or breaking in behind, that could cause a lot of problem for Bournemouth. Think Borussia Dortmund under Jurgen Klopp. At the back end of his tenure, of course, the exhaustion was there, but also teams would just give Dortmund the ball. We could see that with Bournemouth this season. The question is, do they have the quality to break teams down? If Alex Scott can have a bit of a run in the first team as well as being injury-free, I think he could be the perfect deep line playmaker to unlock the door. But that being said, I think Bournemouth will be a little bit more of a known quantity this season, hence why we've got them in 12th position. On to 11th spot in the Premier League, I'm going to go with Brighton. It's going to be a transitional season for them. Not only are they going to have to switch from De Zerbi's back 4 tactics to Herzl's back 3 tactics, but I think there'll be a bit of adaptation in terms of players as well. Herzl is the youngest ever head coach in the Premier League and took St. Pauli back to the Bundesliga with a really impressive style of football. They play a bit of a 3-4-3, but the interesting side was the centre-back would step into midfield and become a defensive midfielder, similar to how a libero moves from the base. This saw them free up the 8s with their top scorer Hartl in the Bundesliga playing a central midfield, attacking midfield role that again would be pushed higher by that libero stepping into central midfield. St. Pauli looked like a bit of a 4-on-4 when they had the ball, and obviously dropping back to a back 5 or a 3-4-3 structure without the ball, but expect that to take a bit of time to find the player that's going to be this key libero, the key central midfielder as well. That being said, I love Brighton's signings. They've signed a lot of talented young players, and Minter is going to be a star in the Premier League, signed from Newcastle United. He is going to score goals. On to the top half of the Premier League. In 10th, we're going to go with much favoured West Ham United. I like some of their recruitment, but other parts of the recruitment doesn't really make sense. A lot of the signings that West Ham have made would have suited David Moyes versus Julian Lopetegui that's going to come in and be their new manager. Lopetegui for me is a Louis van Gaal possession style coach that arguably has possession to control the opposition versus having possession to create chances. That can be seen with his last full season as coach of Sevilla, where Sevilla had the 3rd most possession in La Liga, but in terms of chances created by expected goals, they ranked 11th. And you can see how possession was used as a defensive tactic, as Sevilla that season were 3rd in the league for the least expected goals conceded. So just to simplify that, a lot of possession, not enough chances created, and arguably holding the ball to stop the opponents versus to attack. You flip that as well and you look at someone like Nicholas Fulkrug. He is a striker that you've got to hit. He is brilliant when you hit him early. In terms of the Champions League last season, only Vinicius Jr. had more goal-creating actions than Nicholas Füllkrug. That came from Dortmund hitting him early, him playing off players, and having an action or two before the goal being scored. That being said, with this possession-based style, Nicholas Füllkrug's going to do most of his work out arguably pinning the back four and then getting in the box. Yes, of course, he's got good quality from heading situations, again, dominant in those areas, but I just think he's not quite the right player for this new West Ham United team. I think it would have been perfect for David Moyes. On top of that, West Ham have signed Somerville. Of course, Somerville directly involved in loads of goals for Leeds United last season, more than any other Leeds player, but defensively does struggle. He switches off a little bit, allowing his teammates to having to do more work for him, to arguably carry him in a defensive sense. West Ham United really struggled last season. They can't have any passengers. Only Sheffield United, Luton and Burnley conceded more goals. That being said, they have addressed their problems at centre-back. Max Kilman joins from Wolverhampton Wanderers for £40 million for a 27-year-old. Pretty crazy, but Todibo signed from Nice, again 40 million, but a top quality footballer. I think that will help, but I think there's still concerns at fullback for West Ham. There's still concerns about whether the style fits the squad. There is a lot of concerns in my mind, and that's why we've got them in 10th, and we have not overhyped them in this video. But get in the comments below. Do you think their signings were good? We're all got opinions here. Anyway, let's move on. On to 9th in the Premier League, and we're going with Crystal Palace. Oliver Glasner's had a great impact in the Premier League. Palace, in fact, 5th in the league since he joined. That being said, though, Michael Elise has moved to Bayern Munich. He finished the season in scintillating form under Oliver Glasner. Goals, assists, creativity, playmaking from one of those inside positions in Glasner's 3-4-3 structure. I do think that they'll struggle a little bit without the duality of Eze and Elise, but Kamada could step up, or even someone like Ismail Assar, who's had previous success in the Premier League for Watford. I do think Guehi will be really missed if he joins Newcastle United like reported. I think that's why we are putting them in around 9th in the Premier League. I think they'll start really well. There's also question marks on whether Mateta's going to come back knackered. He played the Olympic Games and then is going to be straight into a Premier League season. He's been on fire in the Premier League since Glasner took charge, scoring more goals than any other striker, but can he continue this form? That's the only question marks I've got for Crystal Palace. On to 8th position, and we're going to go with Chelsea. Why Chelsea? Because they haven't solved the biggest issue that they had at back end of last season, and that's having a true number 9. I do like Nicholas Jackson, but if Chelsea want to take that next step and get into the Champions League spots, they need a Victor Osimhen type striker. They have spent the money, €180 million, buying 9 different players, with only really Pedro Neto improving that first 11. You can see Pedro maybe playing on the right wing, Cole Palmer as a 10, and Nkunku as a left winger. That's a lot of goals, a lot of creativity, and a lot of ability. That being said, Chelsea look defensively an absolute mess right now, and look like they're going to concede a lot of goals. Thiago Silva's gone, and his leadership will be massively missed. And it's for someone like Levi Colwill to step up into that leadership position. Something I expect him to do, but you're looking at partners for Levi Colwill right now. There's not many of the Chelsea centre-halves that are really stepping up and looking like the real deal. So I think that's going to be a concern. I think Enzo Maresca's style is very, very good. The plan A is fantastic, but he lacks a plan B. Teams in the Premier League are far too good to only have one plan against. They'll work out how to play against this 3-2-5 structure, look to play on the counter-attack and break them down. Chelsea's squad is an absolute mess. At the time of recording, there's over 40 players in the Chelsea squad right now. You can't even play, You're nearly playing 3 games of 11v11 with that squad. That is absolutely crazy. That's going to cause Maresca a lot of problem. There's going to be unhappy players at training that are not going to be anywhere near the first team, which is going to cause friction. And that is why we've got Chelsea in 8th, and maybe Enzo Maresca gets sacked before the end of the season. That being said, if Chelsea sign Victor Osimhen, they'll finish 4th in the league. At the time of recording, they've not done the deal. So if that happens, Chelsea, 4th. On to 7th place in the Premier League, and we're going to go with Newcastle United. Not quite the Champions League for the Toon, but it will be another season of development. I think the big problem for Newcastle has been their lack of spending in the market due to FFP. That's hurt them. Their first 11 is Champions League quality. The issue for Newcastle, though, is when those players get injured, the backups aren't at that same level. And I think when you're looking at their key players, they've got to keep the likes of Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, and A new one, Anthony Gordon, throughout the entire season if they want to get into the top 4. Anthony Gordon's got some surprising statistics last season. I think he went slightly under the radar. 11 goals and 10 assists for Newcastle United in the division is a great record for a young, talented winger. I think Newcastle build around those 3 players. Sandro Tonelli is going to be a new signing after coming back from his betting ban, and I do think there will be some improvements for Newcastle. I think you're looking at the likes of Lewis Hall and Livramento to really step up and become first choice fullbacks. All that being said though, I just don't think they've got the squad depth to truly compete for the Champions League spots. They'll beat teams on their day, but I think overall the squad depth is still a big problem for me. Maybe they should take a few players from Chelsea. On to 6th in the Premier League, and we're going to go with Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. They are going to once again be the team to entertain the league. Expect goals galore, and even more considering they've just signed Dominic Solanke from Bournemouth. Only Julian Alvarez and Kai Havertz covered more distance as a striker. When you combine that with the fact that Tottenham were number 1 in the league for PPDA, they've got the perfect centre forward. Archie Gray is another good signing, whether he'll play right back or defensive midfield. He has got a lot of talent at his disposal. But I do think for Spurs this season, it's going to be the great entertainers. Goals, assists, but they're going to concede as well. In fact, if we look at last season, the first 10 games, Spurs were unbeaten. They won 8 games, but from that position in the next 28 games, actually they finished the league in that spell 9th in the league. Teams started to work out how to play against Ange, with both fullbacks playing super aggressive positions. There was a lot of space in the channels, and without Mickey van der Ven, Spurs started to struggle, and I expect that to happen this season. They'll beat teams 5-4, they'll lose to teams 3-0, and they still probably won't be able to deal with their bogey team Newcastle United. But another exciting season for Spurs fans who will finish 6th in the Premier League. On to 5th in the league, and we're going to undercook this. We're going to go Man United to finish 5th in the league. Why I'm saying that is because it's very much a work in progress for Ineos. So far, Ineos have made some brilliant signings, buying the best young centre-back in the world of football in Lenny Yoro. Signing Joshua Zirkzee for €35 million is a bargain. On top of that, Mazraoui and De Ligt joining from Bayern Munich. Manchester United's biggest problems has been at centre-back for me, especially when you're concerned building out from the back, but also players dropping off the line to receive. So with Zirkzee, De Ligt, and of course Lenny Yoro, that solves all those problems. On top of that, Manchester United's pressing structure looks a lot better. Erik ten Hag is using a 4-2-4 structure to squeeze the opponents out the back and look to turn the ball over high in the middle of the park to break and transition quickly. United need to score more goals, but now they've got the attack to do that. On top of Joshua Zirkzee, Rasmus Højlund now shares the number 9 spot. You've also got Amad Diallo, who's going to have his breakout season, Garnacho, Rashford, and of course Mason Mount. Being fit for a year is going to be a big improvement, considering Mount can play 8 and he can play number 10. I think United will use him in a lot of games this season, but I don't think United are quite there for the Champions League. If United were to sign Sanderberg and Ugarte, I would have them in the top 4, but without those 2 players, I've got United in 5th position. On to 4th in the Premier League, we're going to go with Unai Emery's Aston Villa. European football may hurt them a little bit, but they've done really well in the market and signed arguably 7 players that can instantly get added into their first team squad and gives them great depth. I love that they've activated the signing of bringing Philogene and Cameron Archer back to Villa Park. 2 young players that came through the academy that have played Championship and Premier League football and now are ready to play for Emery. I think you look at their midfield as well. Signings like Ross Barkley going really under the radar. Brilliant for Luton Town in the league last season. Is going to be a really good squad player for Emery. Could play left, could play right, could play in central midfield, or even as a number 10. I do think Villa's squad is good enough to play Champions League and League football. The only concern is Ollie Watkins. If Ollie Watkins does pick up a big injury, they won't make the Champions League. But saying that, the likes of Morgan Rogers, Cameron Archer should be enough for rotation. It's just if it's a big injury, that could be a big concern for Villa. Ollie Watkins directly involved in more goals than any other striker in the Premier League last season. On to 1st, 2nd and 3rd. For me, these 3 teams have just got so much more quality than the rest of the teams in the league. They're complete squads and they're all ready to fight for the title. In 3rd, we're going to go for Liverpool. The reasons why they're 3rd, not 1st or 2nd, is because they haven't signed a defensive midfielder. Zubimendi would have been perfect, but his move to Anfield fell through. From Zubimendi joining Liverpool, they could have built a solid box midfield that would have been able to play through most teams in the Premier League. But without a true defensive midfielder, they're going to have a few problems. I think defensively, there's a bit of an issue there. When you're playing a Gravenberch or a Endo or even a McAllister in that position, it's just not the same level of a Rodri or a Declan Rice or Jorginho. And that is why Liverpool are third. I still think they've got the third best team in the Premier League, and the squad and the player power will get them across the line to easily make that Champions League spot. That being said, of course, this season could be quite interesting. When you look at teams that have gone from a defensively minded manager to an attacking manager like a Conte to Postecoglou, or alternatively a David Moyes to Martinez, you usually get really good results. And I'm not saying Jurgen Klopp is a defensive manager, but his identity is the pressing structure, which is a defensive strategy. That's what they build all their plays off, that's what they built all their training sessions off, and that was the main idea. They're moving away from that with pressing and kind of breaking and counter-attacking being their default to more of a possession-heavy side under Arne Slot. So either that'll work out really well and Arne Slot will get the benefits of the pressing and add that to his possession game, and Liverpool could even overperform this third place in the Premier League, or alternatively, we could see a significant drop off. I do think Liverpool have got enough quality. Mohamed Salah playing this right wing option is going to be good. He'll hold the height and the width of the team. You've also got the likes of Diogo Jota, who I think are going to come alive under Arne Slot. On top of that, Trent Alexander-Arnold has been inverting into midfield like he did on Jurgen Klopp, so expect another stellar season for the England right back. But Liverpool in third place, I think that's fair with what they've got. Right, to the top two. Can Arsenal win the Premier League? They had a near-perfect season last season for City to kick into gear in February and steamroll the competition. This could be the perfect season, though, for Arsenal. City have lost Julian Alvarez, and it doesn't look like they're replacing them. City, in a way, are transitioning a little bit with a lot of young players entering that first-team squad. Are they ready to win the league? That's the question marks. Saying that, though, of course, Kevin De Bruyne is back, and so is Erling Haaland. So, we're going to bang Arsenal in second place. As much as I really want them to win the Premier League, I think second place is going to be what it is for Arsenal this season. In terms of their signings, Calafiori looks so perfect for Arsenal. His ability to step into midfield, his passing and carrying out of the back, and his ability in duels is fantastic. In terms of defensive duels, only William Saliba had a higher win rate than Calafiori last season, but also his 5 assists from centre-back show his ability to move into midfield and create for his teammates. Going to be a great signing. There's rumours around Mikel Moreno signing for Arsenal as well, who will add goals into Arsenal's midfield, but also a real completeness. A true box-to-box midfielder, capable of defending in his own box and then getting into the opponent's box. An underrated passer, left-footed, really completes Arsenal's squad. I love the signings that Arsenal have made. They've not gone out and bought volume, but they've bought real quality within the market. The difference, I feel, but still between Arsenal and Man City, is that true number 9. That being said, Kai Havertz, of course, distance covered we mentioned before, second in the Premier League behind Julian Alvarez, but also the other statistics which are really important, goals and assists in that striking position, 8 goals and 6 assists as a striker, so maybe Kai Havertz is the solution. That being said, Arsenal probably do need another option. If they were to buy anyone, of course Victor Gyökeres is the guy, would score a hatful of goals for Arteta and would win them the league, but at the time of recording, Arsenal have not gone into the market and bought a 9. That means for me, Man City once again win the league. Erling Haaland finished last season as top scorer, and he'll do that again this season, but expect him to have a season closer to his first year in England versus his second. He had the summer off, he had time to relax and get his body ready, but also Kevin De Bruyne looks like he'll get back to his best this season. On top of that, watch out for Oscar Bob and Rico Lewis. I feel like these are 2 young players that are really going to establish themselves in the City first team. But anyway, we're going to go with Arsenal to come second and Man City to win the Premier League once again. It's getting pretty boring under Pep Guardiola, isn't it? But anyway, guys, I've been Statman Dave. If you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and get into the comments below your predictions for every single position in the league. I don't want you coming back in 12 months' time and not doing that, so get in below. But also get all your hot takes in the comments below. I want to see some crazy hot takes. Maybe we'll do a video on those. I've been Statman Dave. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.